Some reports suggest, going back to COVID, that your Eat Out to Help Out programme led to, some reports suggest, a 17% spike in COVID infections. With hindsight, which is great of course, was it a mistake?
No.
God forbid, would you do something like that again?
No, I mean, if you think what happened is almost every country in Europe ended up having exactly the same spike in infections thereafter. Every single one of them ended up putting more restrictions in place afterwards. So it's hard to say that that was the difference.
We'll now listen to Patrick Vallance, the UK's chief scientific advisor during the pandemic, giving evidence to the COVID inquiry.
Just focusing for a moment on Eat Out to Help Out, it's evident from your witness statement that at the time you and indeed Sage didn't agree with that approach, or at least were alive to the risks that it brought with it. That'd be a better way of putting it.
Well, I think up until that point, the message had been very clear, which is interaction between different households and people that you weren't living with in an enclosed environment with many others was a high-risk activity. That policy completely reversed it to saying, we will pay you to go into an environment with people from other households and mix in an indoor environment for periods extended over a couple of hours or more. And that is a completely opposite public health message as a result of that. Now, it's quite likely that had an effect on transmission. In fact, it's very difficult to see how it wouldn't have had an effect on transmission, and that would have been the advice that was given had we been asked beforehand.
Yes. Well, let me just take you to your statement, if I may. You say, as I've discussed, Sage, this is the point you just made, was not asked to provide advice ahead of the Eat Out to Help Out scheme being introduced. And then you say this, but I think it would have been obvious to all involved that our advice would have been that this was likely to increase transmission of the virus. We can hold that in mind. Can we look at a paragraph of Mr. Sunak's witness statement, please? Thank you. And it's paragraph 317. And Mr. Sunak says, throughout the period at which Eat Out to Help Out was in operation and immediately prior to its implementation, I don't recall any concerns about the scheme being expressed during ministerial discussions, including those attended by the CMO and no doubt he means the GCSA. That's you.
So it's hard to say that that was the difference.
In fact, it's very difficult to see how it wouldn't have had an effect on transmission.